لا تعجل بالقرآن من قبل أن يقضى إليك وحيه وقل رب زدني علما.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا، من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد. So continuing from where we left off last time in Aqeedah Wasitiyyah, we got to the section where Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala was talking about the methodology of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and he was mentioning that we accept and we affirm what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has affirmed for himself and what the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam has affirmed for Allah, because Allah is more knowledgeable of himself than anyone. Allah is more knowledgeable of himself, and so what he has affirmed for himself, then we affirm that, and that Allah is the most truthful in speech and the best in speech, and that his messengers are truthful. And this is in opposition to those who speak and say about Allah that which they do not know. And this perhaps, as Shaykh al-Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned, is in reference to the people of Tahrif, those who make distortion. They are deviated and they distort the names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they are the ones who are talking upon Allah with that which they do not know. And that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلِهَذَا قَالَ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى سُبْحَانَ رَبِّكَ رَبِّ الْعِزَّةِ عَمَّا يَصِفُونَ وَسَلَامٌ عَلَى الْمُرْسَلِينَ وَالْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. سُبْحَانَ رَبِّكَ رَبِّ الْعِزَّةِ عَمَّا يَصِفُونَ. Subhana, meaning that Allah is glorified, as they say, free of any deficiencies, free of any shortcomings. Your Lord, the Lord of honor and power, is free of what they describe, of what they attribute to him. وَسَلَامٌ عَلَى الْمُرْسَلِينَ وَالْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. And that sound and safetiness upon the messengers, and all praise be due to Allah, the Lord of all of creation. So at the beginning of the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala highlights and affirms that He is free. He is free of what they attribute to Him, of their distortions and their deviations, the people of innovation. Their distortions and their deviations when it comes to the names and attributes of Allah, then Allah is free of what they claim of Him. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned, التسبيح تنزيه الله عن كل سوء وأصل اللفظة من المباعدة من قولهم سبحت في الأرض إذا تباعدت فيها. So the meaning of Subhana Rabbika, that may your Lord or your Lord is free and glorified from those deficiencies that they attribute. Ibn al-Qayyim said the meaning of it is that Allah is free of all evils, free of all deficiencies, Rabbil Izzah, the Lord of honor and power. And this indicates again the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then, فَسَبَّحَ نَفْسَهُ عَمَّا وَصَفَهُ بِهِ الْمُخَالِفُونَ لِلرُّسُلِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala freed himself from what those who oppose the messengers say about him. Those who opposed the messengers, and so they came about with statements upon Allah that Allah had not affirmed for himself and the messengers had not affirmed for Allah. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declares his innocence and freedom, and that he is the glorified above what they claim and they attribute to him. That is what Shaykh al-Islam mentions here. فَسَبَّحَ نَفْسَهُ عَمَّا وَصَفَهُ بِهِ الْمُخَالِفُونَ لِلرُّسُلِ. Allah freed himself in that ayah from what the opposers, those who oppose the messengers, described and attributed to Allah with. وَسَلَّمَ عَلَى الْمُرْسَلِينَ لِسَلَامَةِ مَا قَالُوهُ مِنَ النَّقْصِ وَالْعُيُوبِ. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala سَلَّمَ عَلَى الْمُرْسَلِينَ, sending those salutations or explaining the safety and the soundness, the correctness of what those prophets and messengers came with, to highlight the correctness of what they were upon. فَالرُّسُلُ عَلَيْهِمُ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ وَأَتْبَاعُهُمْ وَصَفُوهُ سُبْحَانَهُ وَتَعَالَى بِصِفَاتِ الْكَمَالِ. The messengers, the prophets, and those who follow their pathway, they attributed to Allah the attributes of perfection. They attributed to Allah perfection, not from any of the naqa'is wal-uyub. They did not attribute to Allah any deficiencies and shortcomings. نزهوه عما لا يليق به من التشبيه والمثال. They declared Allah to be free of that which is not befitting and suitable to him from the deficiencies and the shortcomings and the resemblances and comparisons. أما أعداء الرسل فوصفوه بضد ذلك من النقائص والعيوب وألحدوا في أسماء الله وصفاته وآياته. As for the enemies of the messengers, they attributed to Allah the deficiencies and the shortcomings, and they distorted the names and attributes of Allah and the ayat of Allah. So you can see at the very beginning here, a foundation is being laid. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala is laying the foundation to understanding the names and attributes of Allah, and is highlighting to us that the source of this knowledge is in the Quran and the Sunnah, from that which came in the revelation, from that which was conveyed by the prophets and messengers. And that's why the safety and the soundness and the correctness and the uprightness of the messengers is highlighted, because they أعلم الرسل والأنبياء فإنهم أعلم الخلق بالحق وأنصح الخلق وأفصحهم وأقدرهم على البيان والتبليغ. The messengers, they are the most knowledgeable of the creation regarding the truth. The messengers are the most knowledgeable of the creation regarding the truth, and they are the most sincere in their advice to the creation, and they are the most eloquent and the most capable of clarifying those affairs and conveying those affairs. Hence, they are praised. Hence, they are praised for that which they have in superiority of their knowledge regarding this truth, and their sincerity of advice to the creation, and their eloquence in their ability to convey, and their general capability upon clarification. They have that, and so the truth, it comes via the prophets and the messengers, and so those who are upon that methodology from them and follow in those footsteps and of the final messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then those are the ones who will be upon the truth. So then he mentions وَسَلَّمَ عَلَى الْمُرْسَلِينَ لِسَلَامَةِ مَا قَالُوهُ مِنَ النَّقْصِ وَالْعَيْبِ. So that is that praise for the prophets and the messengers due to the correctness of what they stated regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, due to the correctness of what they stated regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of attributing to Him the attributes of perfection only, attributing to Him the attributes of perfection only, and freeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from any deficiencies and shortcomings. وَهُوَ سُبْحَانَهُ قَدْ جَمَعَ فِيمَا وَصَفَهُ وَسَمَّى بِهِ نَفْسَهُ بَيْنَ النَّفِي وَالْإِثْبَاتِ. This is important to take note of now. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala combined between two affairs when it comes to the names and attributes. وَهُوَ سُبْحَانَهُ قَدْ جَمَعَ بين فيما وصف وسمى به نفسه بين النفي والإثبات. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala combined between affirmation and negation in that which He attributed to Himself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala combined between negation and affirmation in that which He attributed to Himself and named Himself with. جمع الجمع في اللغة الضم والاجتماع الانضمام والتفريق ضده. So when we say that Allah combined these affairs, meaning brought them together, combined them and brought them together, and the opposite of that is separation. So Allah combined certain affairs together in what He attributed to Himself in terms of the names and the attributes. And that is something we've already briefly spoken about in the ayah لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ فَقَوْلُهُ بَيْنَ النَّفِي وَالْإِثْبَاتِ فَالنَّفِي كَقَوْلِهِ لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. Like we said, the basis of understanding the names and attributes of Allah, the core of it is understood from the ayah لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. That there is nothing like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but He is the all-hearing and the all-seeing. The first part of this ayah has a nafi, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ, that there is nothing like unto Allah. So any form of resemblance, any form of comparison, that is all eradicated, that is all wiped away. There is no comparison, no resemblance. وَقَوْلِهِ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ, and that there is no equal or partner to him. This is another negation. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ, that there is no partner or equal or participant to him, negating that anyone can possibly be an equal to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَكَقَوْلِهِ لَا تَأْخُذُهُ سِنَةٌ وَلَا نَوْمٌ, and like the statement of Allah in Ayatul Kursi, which we're going to come to soon, that neither sleep nor slumber overtakes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Neither sleep nor slumber overtakes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَكَقَوْلِهِ وَلَا يَؤُودُهُ حِفْظُهُمَا, unlike the statement of Allah that He is not overcome, overwhelmed, overpowered in guarding them and preserving them, the heavens and the earth. So these are some examples where Allah has given us negations on certain affairs. Negations. Allah is not overcome by sleep, a negation. Neither slumber, a negation. There is nothing like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a negation. لَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ, that there is no comparison or equal to Allah. All of these are forms of negation that Allah is mentioning to us. Then there is also al-ithbat, the affirmation. Al-ithbat, the affirmation. And that is, for example, in the second part of the ayah, لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٌ وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ, but He is the all-hearing and the all-seeing. That is an affirmation. That is al-ithbat. فالإثبات كقوله وهو السميع البصير, وقوله وهو الحكيم الخبير, وقوله قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد. These are all examples of affirmations. He is the all-hearing, the all-seeing. He is the all-wise, the all-knowledgeable. He is, say, He is Allah, the One. Allahu Samad. Allah, He is As-Samad. The one that all of the creation, they return back to Him with their needs. These are all affirmations that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is informing us about. Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah mentioned, قال شيخ الإسلام ابن تيمية رحمه الله: ومعاني التنزيه ترجع إلى هذين الأصلين. Shaykh al-Islam said in other books, في أماكن أخرى, في كتب أخرى, that the meaning of التنزيه, the meaning and the reality of declaring Allah to be free of any deficiencies and shortcomings, it returns back to these two principles: إثبات الكمال والنفي التشبيه والمثال. Affirming the perfection of Allah and negating any resemblance or comparison to Allah. Affirming and establishing the perfection of Allah whilst also negating and rejecting the resemblance and comparison to Allah. That is how the perfection to Allah comes, and how you free Allah from any deficiencies and shortcomings, from the naqa'is wal-uyub, by doing this: إثبات الكمال والنفي التشبيه والمثال. وقد دل عليهما سورة الإخلاص. Ibn Taymiyyah mentions this principle. It is highlighted in Surah Al-Ikhlas. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. And we're going to come to that later. Tafsir of Surah Al-Ikhlas, we're going to do it inshaAllah. He says it is mentioned in Surah Al-Ikhlas, فَاسْمُهُ الصَّمَدُ يَجْمَعُ مَعَانِي الْكَمَالِ وَالْأَحَدُ يتضمن أنه لا مثل له ولا نظير من المنهاج بتصرف. This speech of Ibn Taymiyyah, that this surah, in it you have the name As-Samad, As-Samad, and that indicates all of the meanings of perfection to Allah. And Al-Ahad indicates that He is alone and that there is no comparison or partner or equal. لا مثل له ولا نظير. There is no comparison or equal or partner to Allah whatsoever. فالنفي ليس مقصودا لذاته وإنما هو مقصود لغيره إذ النفي المحض ليس بمدح ولا ثناء بل هو عدم محض ولا مدح في ذلك. So remember the principle. Negation, when we talk about negation in respect to the names and attributes of Allah, the negation itself is not intended for its own sake. It is not negation for the sake of negation and the point of negation. Rather, it is to prove the opposite in perfection. The nafi, what is the point? To establish the kamal. Because when you say لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم, sleep and slumber does not overcome Allah. Nafi. But then what does this prove? That Allah is the mighty and powerful and sleep does not overcome Him. It proves the power and the might of Allah, proves the kamal. So all of the negations, they are not there just for the sake of the negation. They are there to prove to you the other end of it, the other side of it, the perfection. Because if you negate those affairs, it then indicates the opposite in perfection to Allah. So the negations are not there for the sake of negation by themselves. If you just negate something from someone, just the negation, nothing else, then you've not praised that person necessarily. You've negated an affair from them, but you have not affirmed the opposite for them necessarily. So with here, the names and attributes, it is like that. That you negate for the sake of the perfection that you are affirming. Shaykh al-Islam said in the other book التدمرية قال وينبغي أن يعلم أن النفي ليس فيه كمال ولا مدح إلا إذا تضمن إثباتا وكل ما نفى الله عن نفسه من النقائص ومشاركة أحد له في خصائصه فإنها تدل على إثبات ضدها من أنواع الكمالات. نعم من أنواع الكمالات. That it is needed and something that you have to understand that negation by itself isn't perfection and it's not praise unless it has within it the meaning and the objective of affirming the perfection on the other end. You remember, like we said, imagine if somebody comes and says to you, you, mashallah, are not a donkey. Are you going to say, you're going to be happy? Somebody comes and says to you, you are not a donkey. He's praising you. Praising you. Are you going to be happy? Are you going to, what's this? Are you going to be angry? Because this is nafi. You are not a donkey. But when somebody says that kind of phrase to you, or you are not stupid, you are not a fool, he's making negations from you. But those negations by themselves, just those negations, are you going to feel happy? Not really, because the point of those negations is to show that you are smart and you are clever and you are intelligent. That's where the praise is, not just the negation. So here it's not about just the negation, rather it is about the affirmation of the perfection. That's where the praise comes in. So every type of negation that Allah made in the names and attributes here, then they are for the purpose of highlighting and affirming the opposite in terms of perfection. وطريقة أهل السنة والجماعة, and this is very important, the methodology, the manhaj of أهل السنة والجماعة في النفي الإجمال وفي الإثبات التفصيل. When it comes to the negations regarding Allah, then we mention those as they have been mentioned in a general method. But when it comes to the affirmations, then they are detailed, because the real praise is within the affirmation of the perfection. So, طريقة أهل السنة والجماعة في النفي الإجمال وفي الإثبات التفصيل كما جاء في الكتاب والسنة، فأثبتوا له سبحانه الأسماء والصفات ونفوا عنه مماثلة المخلوقات، ومن خالفهم من المعطلة والمتفلسفة وغيرهم عكسوا القضية فجاءوا بنفي مفصل وإثبات مجمل، فيقولون ليس كذا وليس كذا ليس كذا، ذكر معناه في تدمرية. This is the speech of Ibn Taymiyyah. He said that the methodology of Ahlul Sunnah, the tariqah of Ahlul Sunnah, is that we mention the negations in a generalized way. General. We don't start going into detail this, detail that, and Allah not this, not this, not that. General. The negations as Allah has made and informed us of those negations. But when it comes to the affirmations, they are detailed. The perfection, the affirmations of Allah are detailed in those names and attributes. As for the people of innovation, Ahlul Bid'ah, the ones who went against Ahlul Sunnah, from the Mu'attila, the Mutafalsifa, from the philosophers and from those who reject the names and attributes of Allah, they did the opposite, whereby they began affirming in a very loose and general way, but negating the negations in a very expansive and detailed way. Negating this, negating that, Allah cannot, this cannot, that cannot be this, negating the names and attributes and negating all types of affairs in detail, and loosely and generally only affirming some affairs. So they went to the opposite way of Ahlul Sunnah in this matter. So then Shaykh al-Islam says, فَلَا عُدُولَ لِأَهْلِ السُّنَّةِ وَالْجَمَاعَةِ عَمَّا جَاءَ بِهِ الْمُرْسَلُونَ فَإِنَّهُ الصِّرَاطُ الْمُسْتَقِيمُ. فَلَا عُدُولَ لِأَهْلِ السُّنَّةِ وَالْجَمَاعَةِ عَمَّا جَاءَ بِهِ الْمُرْسَلُونَ فَإِنَّهُ الصِّرَاطُ الْمُسْتَقِيمُ. So he says, Ibn Taymiyyah, there is no way of, or no possibility or no opportunity for you in reality then to deviate away from that truth. You cannot deviate away from that methodology, the methodology of Ahlul Sunnah. لا عدول لأهل السنة والجماعة. You cannot deviate away. Ahlul Sunnah cannot deviate away, turn away, bend away from that which the messengers came with. Because what they came with is الصراط المستقيم. فلا ميل ولا انحراف لأهل السنة والجماعة عما جاء به المرسلون، بل هم مقتفون آثارهم مستضيئون بأنوارهم مؤمنون بجميعهم مصدقون لهم في كل ما أخبروا به من الغيب إذ هو الحق والصدق الذي يجب اعتقاده واتباعه ولا يجوز مخالفته. So there is no opening for Ahlul Sunnah to deviate away. You cannot go away from that which the messengers came with. Rather, Ahlul Sunnah follow in the footsteps of the messengers, and they take enlightenment and guidance from the ways of the messengers and their guidance and the revelation they conveyed. And they believe, Ahlul Sunnah, we believe in all of the messengers, and we believe in everything that they told us and informed us of from the affairs of the unseen, because it is the truth whereby it is an obligation upon you to believe in and to follow, and you cannot oppose that. وأعظم ما جاء به المرسلون هو الدعوة إلى توحيد الله وعبادته وحده لا شريك له ومعرفته بأسمائه وصفاته وأفعاله وأنه لا شبيه له ولا نظير له فهذا دينهم من أولهم إلى آخرهم. قال تعالى إن الدين عند الله الإسلام. And the greatest affair that the messengers came with, in the explanation it mentions, the greatest of the affairs that the messengers came with was the da'wah to Tawheed. The da'wah to Tawheed, that is the greatest affair that the messengers they came with and they called to. And the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and knowing Allah through His names and attributes, is from the greatest of the affairs of the da'wah of the prophets and messengers. Knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His names and attributes and actions, and that there is no comparison to Him, and there is no partner to Him, no equal to Him, no resemblance to Him. And that was the da'wah of all of the messengers from the beginning to the end. And as Allah said, Inna ad-deena 'inda Allahi al-Islam. The religion with Allah is al-Islam, the religion of Tawheed, the religion of this correct Aqeedah. فالدين الذي جاء به محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم هو دين الأنبياء من أولهم إلى آخرهم. So the religion that the Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم came with, that is the religion of the messengers from the beginning to the end of them. Meaning in terms of the Tawheed and the Aqeedah that they came with. ليس لله دين سواه فالإسلام دين أهل السماوات ودين أهل التوحيد من الأرض لا يقبل الله من أحد دين سواه. So that is the religion with Allah, and there is no other religion that can be accepted. That is the religion of the inhabitants of the heavens and the religion of the inhabitants of the people of Tawheed on this earth, and Allah will not accept any other religion besides it. So he mentions فَلَا عُدُولَ لِأَهْلِ السُنَّةِ وَالْجَمَاعَةِ عَمَّا جَاءَ بِهِ الْمُرْسَلُونَ. That there is no possibility, no option for you to deviate away from that which the messengers came with, because that is الصِّرَاطُ الْمُسْتَقِيمُ. That is the straight path, and so there is no option or any leeway for you to deviate away from as-sirat al-mustaqim. So as-sirat, it is al-musilu ila as-sa'ada al-abadiyyah, wa huwa alladhi la tariqa ila Allah wa la ila jannatihi siwah. So as-sirat al-mustaqim, it is the path to happiness, eternal happiness. And there is no other path to Allah and to paradise except upon الصراط المستقيم. والصراط في اللغة الطريق الواضح. الصراط linguistically in Arabic it means a clear pathway. So الصراط المستقيم, it is the clear upright pathway upon the truth that Ahlul Sunnah are upon. Al-Mustaqim meaning الذي لا اعوجاج فيه ولا انحراف. The upright pathway that does not have any bends in it, any deviations in it, any turning in it a straight and upright pathway, that is al-mustaqim. فالمراد بالصراط قيل, when you say for example اهدنا الصراط المستقيم, المراد بالصراط, the meaning of الصراط is قيل الإسلام وقيل القرآن وقيل طريق السنة والجماعة. The tafsir of الصراط المستقيم, some of them said it means Islam, some of them said it means the Quran, some of them said it means the Sunnah and the methodology of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and all of those are correct. All of those tafasir, it's the same thing. الصراط المستقيم الإسلام, الصراط المستقيم القرآن, الصراط المستقيم السنة, all the same thing. It is all the same thing. تنوع. It is just different words, different meanings, different explanations, but they all come back to the same thing. As-Sirat al-Mustaqim is the religion, the Quran, the Sunnah, the methodology. That is As-Sirat al-Mustaqim. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah said, ولا ريب أن ما كان عليه رسول الله وأصحابه علما وعملا وهو معرفة الحق وتقديمه وإيثاره على غيره هو الصراط المستقيم. وكل هذه الأقوال المتقدمة دالة عليه جامع له. He said there is no doubt that which the messenger and his companions were upon in knowledge and action, and that is the knowing of the truth and giving it precedence over all else, that is as-Sirat al-Mustaqim. And all of these previous statements, they indicate the same thing, and they incorporate that same meaning, that it is all the straight path, the path of knowledge and of Quran and Sunnah and Islam and Tawheed. That is the path, as-Sirat al-Mustaqim. Then he goes on to mention صراط الذين أنعم الله عليهم من النبيين والصديقين والشهداء والصالحين. The path of those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed. The path of those whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed. And they are the prophets and the truthful ones and the martyrs and the righteous ones. صراط الذين أنعم الله عليهم من النبيين والصديقين والشهداء والصالحين أي طريقهم وأضافه إليهم لأنهم سالكوه فهم الذين يمشون فيه. So this straight path has been attached and attributed to the prophets and the truthful ones and the martyrs and the righteous, because they are the likes of the ones who tread upon that pathway. They are the ones who tread upon that pathway, upon As-Sirat al-Mustaqim. And that is why it is mentioned in the Quran regarding that pathway that they tread upon, attributing it to these people, to the prophets, to the truthful, to the martyrs, and to the righteous people. These are the ones who tread upon the straight path. These are the ones that you wish to be placed alongside. وَحَسُنَ أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا. And how good they are as a companionship for you. So those are the ones who are upon that straight path, and they are the ones that you wish to be upon that straight path with, because of that great virtue, that great blessing and virtue and great station and rank of being upon that straight path alongside the likes of those mentioned from the great prophets and messengers and truthful and the martyrs and the righteous. We'll conclude upon that for today, and we'll start next week from that section there, just giving a little bit more detail about who the righteous are, who the martyrs are, who the truthful ones are, and this path, as-siratul mustaqim, being upon their way. We'll give a bit more detail on that from next week then, inshallah ta'ala. At the same time, 6:45 p.m.